What if the freshest, most gourmet salad you've ever tasted was just a step outside your door? You know, the sort that'll give fancy restaurants a run for their money. Growing your own restaurant quality salads is super easy, quick, and it takes up virtually no space. All you need is some containers, some seeds, some potting mix, and you're in business. No previous experience needed. In this video, I'm going to show you what to grow, how to grow it, and how to keep picking luscious leaves all season long. The secret to a non-stop supply of super salads is picking the right varieties, though to be honest, they're all rather good. For sheer speed and abundance though, today we're going to be sowing and growing cut and come again salad types. We'll be starting some individually, but also sowing some salad mixes, also known as mesclun. These types are sown, grown and harvested all together. They're a combination of different types such as lettuce, arugula or rocket, mizunas, mustards, perhaps rainbow chard, landcress, all sorts of goodies that can be sown and picked within as little as 3 to 4 weeks. For individual stars, you can't go wrong with loose leaf types of lettuce. Now that includes classics like this oak leaf lettuce here, but also the classic salad bowl types as well. These are bred specifically so you can take one leaf at a time and thereby extend the harvest window over a much longer period, as opposed to just taking a whole head of lettuce all in one go. And then there's the likes of chard and spinach, which look just fantastic in a container. While heading and hearting types of lettuce such as iceberg, cos or romaine lettuces grow well enough in containers, they do tend to take up a lot more space and they take slightly longer to mature. So today we are just sticking to those cut and come again varieties, which is where the magic really happens. Now, when I said we're going to grow salads in containers today, I mean that pretty loosely. Pretty much anything that holds potting mix is fair game for salads. They don't know what they're growing in after all. So let's start with some conventional options. Your typical containers, that could include window boxes, and as a general rule, the bigger the container the better, purely because it holds more potting mix, which means it'll dry out a lot less quicker, so you'll have to water less often. But obviously salad leaves are quite small and shallow rooted, so you can grow them in smaller containers too. And one of my favourites are these old mushroom crates like this. But if you want to get creative, recycle and repurpose things, you're going to save yourself a lot of money and get things started even for free, which is my kind of price. So some great options are to raid the recycling bin, of course, and then fish out any containers that have had fruit in, these kind of punnet things like that, or mushrooms. A lot of them already have holes in the bottom, rather conveniently, for drainage, but if they don't, you can just skewer some in with like a screwdriver works well, a Phillips head one, and get those holes in there. Another option are things like big sized yogurt pots. These are fantastic and got a nice depth so they stay moister for longer. And actually growing in something like a colander or strainer is rather fun as well. This can just be lined with some sort of weed fabric, filled up and then sewn into. But perhaps the slightly less conventional option, which I rather like actually, is to use a cardboard box. Now this is an old packing box for moving house. I've just cut it in half like this. They're the same size and dimensions. So now I can put one inside the other and it creates much more rigid walls so that it lasts a bit longer. And I'm going to line it with this old potting mix sack here just to kind of keep it waterproof. And you've got quite a good sturdy little and free container. And with the box nicely lined, I can now just cut some drainage holes into the bottom, and that is important with any container. You want it so that at the very bottom the water can escape so it doesn't sit and pool, which could cause like roots to rot. Now obviously not everyone likes the look of a cardboard box, but you could always cover it in something like hessian or burlap or some kind of reed screening to pretty it up. This cardboard box is quite big, so because salads only really need a depth of sort of 6 to 8 inches or 15 to 20 centimetres or so for their roots, I'm going to fill the bottom half with just some bits and pieces I've got lying around. This is sort of old wood chip and prunings from some recent work, and that just saves on pricey potting mix. And there we go, I've finished with potting mix all the way to the top. I just need to trim the plastic around the edges to make it a bit neater. I've also prepared a mushroom crate here, and to do that all I did was line it with newspaper and then fill that with potting mix. Now if you'd like to know how to start off pea shoots in mushroom trays like this, or how to sow salads into a colander, you'll actually find that in the abridged version of my book, which you can download for free by following the link in the description down below. In short, salads will grow in just about anything. Now it's a bit of a hot and sticky day, it's midsummer and salads are especially thirsty. Keeping up with watering can be difficult sometimes, so one little tip is to use something like water retaining gel or crystals mixed into your potting mix. Now I did a little experiment with this stuff earlier, adding 1 teaspoon into a glass and then topping up with water, and you can see from the footage how much it swells up, and that really helps kind of reduce the watering load. Traditional water retaining gel, however, can have petrochemicals in it, which isn't very nice. So I do have a few options here. I managed to find one that's completely natural, so we're going to add some of that. And also biochar. This stuff here is fantastic at improving the water holding capacity of your soil or potting mix. So for the big box here, I'm going to use some of our biochar. So about maybe a handful and a half. Like that, and just frizz that in, and that will just help organically and naturally improve the water holding capacity. And then for our tray over here, I'm going to use our natural water retaining kind of powder, and according to the instructions I need about 1.5 to 2 teaspoons, and again frizz it all in. Now I don't want you to think that you absolutely need all of this stuff like the biochar or these retaining gels. It's completely optional. It just makes things a bit easier and is a real lifesaver in a hot, dry summer. So I'm quite keen to show you both ways of growing cut and come again salads. We've got this big box container here for growing individual plants away from each other, and then I've got seeds that I'm going to sow directly into the container of a salad mix. They're both really great in their own ways, and it's always worth having both if you can. So let's start with our big box here with our salads, and we've got a nice mix here of 4 different types, and I could probably get maybe up to 9 plants in here. Now I've got 4 different types of both green and red leaf lettuce, and if you're interested I'll just pop them next to me there, the 4 varieties I'm growing, but any loose leaf lettuce would do the job. Doesn't that look great? Now I just need to get them in. Right, let's sow some seeds. Now I've pre-wetted this because the potting mix is really very dry and we want it to be really damp to get things off to a really quick and prompt start. I'm sowing a salad mix called a Tuscany, which is very evocative of sunshine and joy, isn't it, and good food. So what we're going to do is take the smallest scant pinch of seeds. There's always a temptation to bung half the packet in, but that's not going to do you any favours, because if they grow too close together, then your plants aren't going to thrive and you're just going to waste seed. So what I've got in my hand here, possibly even half that, is all I'm going to use. So just gently does it like that. There we are. Sprinkle from a kind of few inches up just to kind of get a good fall of seeds. And we can always thin the seedlings once they come up if they do come up a bit thick. You see, I'd say that's about perfect, so I'm going to put that back in the packet. And then all that's left to do now is cover them over with just a slight bit of more potting mix. You could just bung it on, but I'm going to sieve it just to kind of get a nice even kind of finish. There we are. We're doing it just till the seeds disappear from sight. That's probably it, to be honest with you. And then I'm going to finish with another water to get them on their way. When you're watering newly sown containers, use a watering can fitted with a rose like this and keep the water moving. If you leave it in one place for too long, there's a risk that it'll blast out the seeds or that they'll just get washed into a corner. So that's about right like that, and I'll water this guy too. Growing salads in summer can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. Now, the same warmth that makes everything else in the garden explode into growth can make salad seeds a little bit reluctant to germinate. It's called heat dormancy, and when temperatures get to above about 77 Fahrenheit or 25 Celsius, some seeds, such as those of lettuce, can really struggle to get going. Now the solution is quite simple. Firstly, we can shade things. Put these in the shade where it's naturally cooler, of course. You could put them, under a tree or anywhere that's going to be shaded for most of the day, especially from the warmer afternoon sun. Of course, we can keep things well watered like we've done here and keep passing over them every day to knock back the temperature and keep things nice and moist. Another thing is a little less conventional. So if you've got something you've sown into like this, or you've sown into plugs, one plant into each that you'll then plant into their own pots later on, you could put this in its entirety into the fridge. So if things are really being reluctant to germinate, that shock of cold for 24 hours can be enough to kind of reset the clock, if you like. You'd then bring it out of the fridge and then let it grow on indoors until you do see those seedlings, and then they can move back outside. Once your seedlings have germinated, then popping them somewhere when it's warm at least, that gets morning sunshine but is shaded from the worst of the afternoon sun is absolutely perfect. So let's go into a little bit more depth about watering, probably the main factor between lackluster salad and thriving salad. Now I like to water in the morning if I can, using freshly drawn or cool water. That means the potting mix is cooled right down before the heat of the day. But if you can't water in the morning, the evening is fine. If you find things are actually limping because it's really, really hot, then just get on and water. It doesn't matter too much. When we're watering, you want to water really thoroughly so the water doesn't just wet the very surface but gets right down and travels through the potting mix right down through the container. Another little trick with experience is you can gauge how wet things are by just lifting up the container. Now this one's just been watered so it's quite heavy, but if it's quite light, there's probably not much water in there and you can get on and water. Something else I tend to do is sit my pots like this into a saucer like that. Now when I water, the excess water drains out of the drainage hole and it sits in the water, and then it can take it up from the bottom up, and that means nothing's wasted. I'd say remove them from any standing water after about an hour, just so they're not sitting in it indefinitely. Something else we can do to keep the moisture in there for longer is to mulch it. That just means putting something like grass clippings or little bark chippings over the soil surface in between your plants. Now for this lot here that have been planted, that's pretty easy because there's clear gaps. But for something over here that's been sown direct, that's not going to be possible. But when you can, it's worth doing. Most potting mixes have enough nutrients in to satisfy salad leaves, but if they're in there for a while and you do start to see them struggle, slow down, or the leaves yellow, for example, what you can do is just give them a natural, all-balanced liquid fertilizer, something like liquid seaweed. That's absolutely perfect actually. And just apply that when you water and you'll notice that the leaves really start to green up and that vibrancy returns. Before we get on and harvest some salad leaves, I want to show you what to do with your cut and come again sort of direct sown seedlings here. This is probably okay, but I'd say just a touch too dense. So what I'm going to do is just pull out some of the seedlings, so they're roughly, I don't know, about 1/2 inch, 1.5 centimeters apart. It's not a precise thing. You can let them be quite crowded, but they'll grow sort of up and really rammed in. So I think to get the best from them, if you can leave a bit of space between them, then that actually does serve you well in the long run. And all these thinnings, by the way, these can all be eaten as your first harvest. Do you know what time it is? It's harvest time. So let me show you how I harvest cut and come again style. This is different from harvesting the whole head of lettuce and removing it to the kitchen. We're going to take 1 or 2 leaves from each plant at a time. So let me show you. What we're aiming for is the outermost leaves of each plant. Those will also be the biggest. And you click through. You could use a scissors or sharp knife for this, but I prefer just to click them off between my finger and thumb. And the idea is that we're going to leave the smallest leaves towards the centre to grow on for the next harvest. So something like that plant there is about right. Let's take some of these oak leaf lettuce leaves. Look at those, aren't they stunning? You can see why they're called oak leaf leaves. And again, bottommost, outermost leaves, leaving the central smaller leaves in the middle to grow on for our next harvest. There we are. Now, that might look quite brutal, but I promise you, within just 1 week, 2 weeks tops in the winter or cooler months, this will be ready to pick again, and I can take 3, 4, even 5 harvests like this before I need to sort of grow more. Like I said, once these are over, I can just rip out the old plants, tip out the potting mix, zhuzh it up a bit, and add a bit of general purpose fertiliser before repacking the pot and re-sowing and replanting. Now here's an interesting thing. These guys were planted, honestly, just 3 weeks ago, using these same plugs that we used earlier. These guys have just been kept in here, ticking along, and they've kind of frozen at this size, but as soon as they get out into fresh potting mix, they burst into growth, and this way I can keep a nice succession of leaves coming. The key thing to watch out for in summer, whether they're growing in beds or containers, is bolting. Now this is when plants rise up to flower. For things like spinach, it makes the leaves a lot smaller and fiddlier to pick, but for salads like lettuce here, it makes them really bitter tasting, and when they get to this point they're no good for anything. So we want to delay bolting as much as possible, and the way to do that is to keep our salad leaves cool, to water them regularly of course, and you can also often look out for varieties described as bolt resistant. The simple, most effective way to keep your salads cropping for as long a window as possible is to make fresh sowings or plantings every 3 to 4 weeks. So we've just sown this tray here, haven't we? This one was sown about 2 weeks ago, and we can keep that going. With regards to the individual plants in here, started from plugs, once they've been planted on, I might make a fresh sowing and keep the party going. Of course, it's also worth growing that wide range of different types of salad leaf as well. So not just lettuce, but arugula or rocket, spicy mustards, mizunas, spinach and so on, so that you get a variety. So if one salad leaf struggles in certain conditions, another one will keep you going. That builds resilience that way. And if it's possible to do so, you could also just try sinking your containers into the soil. That way they'll stay a lot cooler and will dry out a lot slower as well. And that is pretty much it for growing your own salad leaves. Now do let me know down below if you're going to give this a try, and let me know how you get on. If you're using our garden planner, by the way, you can add all sorts of container options to your plan. There's one there. And then you can switch to plants and then drop in a salad of your choice. Don't forget, there are loads of salad and container options in the garden planner, which will help you to get the very most from your space. Just head on over here to give it a try for free, and I will catch you next time.